not attempting to evade anyone.
Yeah,
I will wave in the rearview mirror and acknowledge it, and I'll be pointing off the side of the road to let them know that I'm just looking for a safe place to pull over.
Sounds good.
If you do that, then they're going to have a very tough time saying that you made an attempt to evade the police.
Sure.
And of course, their dash cam will show that.
Yeah, you're not going 80 miles an hour around the corner.
It'll show exactly what the speed is because the camera's recording all that. It will also show that you are waving acknowledgement to the officer and that you signaled him that you're going to pull over. So they're going to have a very hard time with their own video proving that you made no attempt to evade.
Okay, speaking of video, more and more people are taking cameras with them. They're driving with cameras or their cell phones, and they're capturing the police officers, conducting their searches. And they, often enough, they will tell you, hey, turn off that camera. You can't have that camera on. What do you say to that?
I'd say if this is a public place, you are conducting an official duty, and I have every right to tape you in the performance of your
and they've got their dash cams, recording and other recording devices recording every moment.
This evidence they can alter later. If you have possession of evidence they can't touch, they can't fix that if they screw up during the stop.
Yeah. Okay, let's move to on foot. You're walking across the street, you're on a street corner, officer comes up to you, starts questioning you. What's your name? What are you doing standing around here? Now what?
Officer, what's the purpose of this interrogation? Am I under any lawful obligation to respond or answer your questions? And let him know right up front that this is not going to be just an easy mark of, I want, you give.
What if they want your identification and you don't have it, and they tell you that it's law, you're supposed to have identification with you at all times?
Then the officer is intentionally and knowingly misstating a law, and he is abusing the authority of his office. There are penal code statutes against that in Texas. They are abuse of official capacity, official oppression, and official misconduct. And they can, in some cases, result in the officer being prosecuted for felony acts. The abuse of official capacity, especially because the level of the offense is actually charged based upon the monetary value of all of the equipment he is using to commit that crime. So once he passes $1,500, it becomes a state jail felony. And we all know that police cruiser is way more than $1,500.
Mm-hmm.
So he runs the very serious risk of committing crimes even when he doesn't know it. But we need to know it so we know how to make the charge.
So you're actually using their own laws against them. I mean, later, this is something that once you record everything or you know the proper things to say.
Official misconduct. And they can. In some cases, result in the officer being prosecuted for felony acts. The abuse of official capacity, especially because the level of the offense is actually charged based upon the monetary value of all of the equipment he is using to commit that crime. So once he passes $1,500, it becomes a state jail felony. And we all know that police cruiser is way more than $1,500.
Mm-hmm.
So he runs the very serious risk of committing crimes even when he doesn't know it. But we need to know it so we know how to make the charge.
So you're actually using their own laws against them. I mean, later, this is something that once you record everything or you know the proper things to say, this is evidence that we could use later in court. Because I'm thinking, what a lot of times, what do we do once we receive a summons or that we get ticketed, and then we're our rights at that point?
Well, our rights at that point are, one, to know whether or not we've been lawfully summoned. We also need to know what the ticket does and does not create a duty upon us for. The ticket is not a summons. A summons, by definition, is a judicial process, and a police officer is an executive officer. He has no authority to issue a summons. What it actually can be considered to be is simply an agreement that, hey, I will let you go if you will promise to appear in front of a judge later rather than forcing me to take you right now, which is the mandate if they do take you into custody. They're required by law to immediately take you before a magistrate. They normally will not do that. If an officer takes you directly to jail and there is no particular reason for him not to act with due diligence, such as an ongoing riot, an ongoing natural disaster, things of that nature, he is duty bound to immediately take you before a magistrate, because the officer never has the authority to incarcerate. He only has the power of arrest. Only a magistrate or judge can issue a commitment order ordering the incarceration of an individual in Texas, and pretty much any other state.
Wow, wow. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the unconstitutional, all the checkpoints that the federal agents have all across the country now. And a lot of these are border checkpoints, but they're 100 miles inland, or they're 100 miles away from the border itself. So you come driving up, and then they ask you, they want to know if you have any fruit or vegetables. They want to look in the trunks of your cars, and they want to search your vehicles, you know. So what do you do at this point? You pull up to a checkpoint. They ask you where you're going.
Where I'm going does not appear to be any of your business.
And then they want to search the trunk of your car.
Permission denied. I will not consent to a search unless you can give me articulable probable cause and you have a warrant.
Now, we have seen some examples. There was a pastor from Phoenix, Arizona. He was driving through Southern California, and he was stopped several times, and he videotaped himself. And he gave a pretty sterling example of how to protect your rights. And he reacted just exactly what you're saying right there. And they eventually let him go. But there was an instance, and I don't know what city it was in, but they actually had a standoff for 2 hours. And they demanded that he would exit his vehicle. He refused to do so. And it got to the point where they broke the windshield, drug him out, tased him. He cut his face up on the concrete and on the broken glass. And now he has a lawsuit. So what do you think about it? Have you heard about that? And what do you think about that?
I have. And that, again, goes back to what we discussed earlier about you never know the type of individual you're up against. You need to take very careful precautions in the people that you're dealing with wearing these uniforms, because they are literally looking to staff law enforcement agencies with psychopaths. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. They want people with no morals, no conscience, no ability to question, follow orders because we enjoy the result of those orders, which is to inflict pain and harm upon others and control them. And they're really, in a lot of areas, they're weaning out the officers that would resist the urging of the higher-ups to do those sorts of things, and replacing them with those that will do so unquestioningly. I know most folks aren't very much, as far as, at least the ones that tend to listen in the Patriot community, a lot of them are atheistic in nature and don't believe in God, but I do. And I'm one of these people that I'm watching the book of Revelations unfold before my eyes at every opportunity, because everything it tells us is coming. You can see it.
Absolutely.
And people are not recognizing it for what it is. They think it's just people being bad to people, when in fact it is the epitome of we fight not against people but against powers and principalities. And that's really what's going on in this world. And because of that, those powers and principalities are looking for those that support it without question. And so these earthly offices that we've developed for these people, they're going to use those. And I've used to teach in my Bible study class at the homeless shelter in Nacogdoches, where I'm from, that everything in Revelations will be brought about through the guise of world politics. Everything. And we're seeing the result of that right now.
Well, speaking of hell on earth, I wanted to talk about the TSA. They have announced that they are expanding their Viper program. It's now going to include, bus terminals, train stations, and even roadside checkpoints.